I forget what even happened between me and this girl, but I um I think she got mad at me. Like I couldn't like drive her somewhere, or my parents couldn't like drive her somewhere
Mhm.
with me. So, and I was like, she really took that to heart. And at night before school one time, she did text me and say, you're ugly, all this, blah, blah, blah. Like, I hate you. And tomorrow I'm going to bring a knife and stab you at lunch. And I was like, hmm.
Oh my God. Manic
Pixie.
Jump Scare. Hosted by Quinn Murphy
and Becca Hobart.
Hi. We're
Quinn. And
we're
we're
Becca.
Becca. And welcome to Manic Pixie Jump Scare, a podcast where we talk openly about our shared delusions,
Passions,
and love for
each
each other. Oh my God, Becca. Episode 5.
This is a big one.
And do you
We
know
thought
anything?
4 was big.
Yeah, 5's even bigger.
5's even bigger, famously.
The question I want to start off the pod with is, do you notice anything different about me?
I want to say, did you get new eyes?
Oh my God, yeah.
No. Oh,
That's
you're on something.
Check.
Did you get new chin?
No, it's the same one I've always had.
Do you have a bayang?
I do. My friend Tony was really happy to hear about the bayangs, but yes, everybody, it is true. The summer of the shag has commenced.
And I'm so
now
excited.
The proud owner of a shag hairstyle. You might not be able to tell. I truly don't think people could tell super well because I was wearing my hair up because I hadn't gotten a haircut in 6 months maybe. And so I just had a lot of it to contend with. And so it was just unmanageable a lot of the time. But I'm now, a new woman.
Shagging.
Got this new fun hairstyle. Becca was one of the
Quinn,
first
I must
people
say,
to know.
I've been begging for this for years now.
Yes.
Literal years.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy it finally happened. And it looks so good.
Yeah,
I can't believe it.
Yeah, I was like, it looks a little, so first of all, my hairdresser, shout out to Arena if she ever listens to this, but somebody I met through class, and she dried it because she wanted to dry cut it a little bit, and so she straightened it out when she cut it, and it was very much giving 45-year-old mother for a second there, and I was like, there's always that oh shit moment during your haircut, or I feel like Becca, you as somebody who changes your hair quite a bit, or at least did for a long time, I feel like when you do something kind of drastic with your hair, you have an oh shit, what's going on moment. And I felt myself having that, but I was also
this is gonna be bad.
Hey, but it's kind of good as well. And then
I think we could rock it. And
then my hair started to wave out because I do have a little bit of a wave to my hair, and so now it's taking its full form and it's flying.
It's perfect.
And
I'm
very happy about it. I did. So my friend, he has a subletter in his apartment right now, and I spent a lot of time over at their place, and so I was just standing there. We were getting ready to go out on Thursday night, so only a day into this new haircut journey I'm on. And his roommate was looking at me, and he was like, what do you do with your hair? He wanted tips. And I was like, what is a better thing to hear after a haircut than, oh my God, do you have any pointers? Come on now.
How can I be like you?
How can I be more like you? Which is, I think, something everyone should ask me.
Yeah, I'm always asking you.
I'm always bang, bang, bang on
what
the door.
What are the steps?
What are the steps?
Exactly.
And so, yeah.
I love it.
But
It looks so
that has
fresh.
been a big part of my past week. Becca,
Mm-hmm.
what has been going on in your life?
Oh my goodness. Well, I had kind of a big week because to
Really?
start off, I did something crazy and I kind of alluded to it in a past episode.
Mm-hmm.
I turned in my apron.
This is a big moment.
Yeah.
Before Beyonce even released, what's the new song called?
Break it up. Wait.
Break Your Soul, Break My Soul,
Break your
Break My
soul. Break my
Soul.
soul.
Before
Sorry,
Beyonce even
Beyonce.
released Break My Soul, in which Big Frida has an interlude where she's like, quit your job, quit your trade. Becca said, you know what? I'm actually already on it. I'm on the wave.
I did that already.
Yeah.
I intuited that. So
Yes.
I'm
You
good.
said, you
But
said, I know something is coming.
I could tell. But also I betrayed that in that I start my new job tomorrow.
Schwerd. Schwerd.
Yes, but it had to happen.
They
So
didn't
I no
say don't get
longer
a new job.
yeah, no. That was never they never said
They
that.
never
And I
stipulate
never said
that.
that.
Yeah, no. They
Um
never said that.
so now I don't bleed Starbucks green. I bleed pink and orange.
Oh, wait, it's
Yeah.
there? I thought it was the
Yeah.
other big makeup chain, maybe.
No, I actually have committed too much crime in their establishments, which maybe I'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. Like in such a way where they
the
know about it, or I forget, have you?
I feel like yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They know. They know.
Yeah. I know.
And so that's good. So that's good.
Yeah.
Um,
So quit the shakeup.
I actually have a very funny story about an Ulta. So recently on that scavenger hunt I did with my work, one of the quests was to get a makeover at
Sure, sure.
Ulta. And so we went into this
Oh my
Ulta
God.
and we were like, hi, where do you do your makeovers? And she was like, actually, we're not doing makeovers right now because of COVID. But mama, I was not about to miss out on like 50 points or whatever. And so I said,
Yeah.
okay, so can we do a little scene study? This poor woman in Ulta. And she was like, sure, I guess. And so I just fully sat down for like 20 seconds and pretended to be like, okay, so what would we do? What would your recommendations be? And she was like, oh, what do you do with your skin? And I was like, I put on SPF and then I'm out the door. That's basically what I do with my skin every day.
Yeah. Step one,
And
step
then
done.
we were like, thank you. It was so weird.
So did you got the points
I
for
assume
the scavenger
so.
hunt?
Yeah.
All right. Fair
we
enough. Fair
we
enough.
did get second to last place in the scavenger hunt, but it's the friends you make along the way,
Yeah.
really. And so yeah.
And I've always said that.
And I've
I
always
love
said
that.
that.
Yeah. Last week also was kind of crazy because Quinn, me and you saw each other and we haven't talked about that yet.
I know. So for the first time since we launched this little creative endeavor, shall we say, Becca and
Mm-hmm.
I actually
Mm-hmm.
saw each other
Mm-hmm.
in the flesh. We were able to be in physical space with one another. We were going to try to shoot a live episode, but then, fun fact, I saw a play the night that Becca was coming to town. I went downtown Pittsburgh. I was like, oh, let me go have a night in the theater. And then, boom, 3 hour play.
And they always do that to you.
And I should have known when
And
there
it
was no
always hurts.
runtime listed in the program.
Yeah.
I could not find a runtime anywhere
No.
for this play. And I was like, I should have known it was gonna be
It's gonna be
that
three.
long.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
pushing four.
No, literally.
Uh,
No, because like I left
three.
so the play started at 7. I left my house at 6 because I was taking the bus down to the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started the journey at 6, did not get back to like my neighborhood until 11. So it was fully like a 5 hour experience.
Oh my God.
It was amazing. Wouldn't
That's
trade it
what
for the
like
world, but
but as a theater maker, if you're gonna make a 3 hour play, just let me know.
just let
Because
me
then I can prepare
know, girl.
myself.
No,
Because
it
like I
was,
will play my bathroom breaks around that, you know?
yeah.
Like, ooh.
Yeah. And I didn't get too disinterested because something about me, I don't love long. I love concise. I love short.
Mm-hmm.
I am a firm believer of nothing should be longer than 90 minutes. as
90-minute
far as
movies,
theater
90-minute
goes.
plays. I
They're tight.
so agree with that.
It's amazing. No intermission. I love 90 minutes, no intermission. Don't stop the
Yep.
action. Please don't stop the music, as
Let's
Rihanna
do
once
it.
so bravely said. And
Please, dear God.
yeah, but I will say I did not get disinterested at any point. I was very interested, which is interesting because the plot is not super. I saw Two Trains Running by August Wilson. Ever heard of him? And there's not like a super kind of like involved or like long plot. It's just a lot of like watching people exist and talk about things. But it was done in an interesting way, in a way where I didn't get bored for 3 hours. So like I wasn't
that
like
is,
other than the fact that my bestie Becca was in town and I had to get back to see her.
Yeah, but you did. You made it. And I was basically in the dark at my apartment because there's no Wi-Fi and like no really lights.
It was very dark.
It's kind of bare in there because like we're in the process of moving out fully. So you came and entertained me. And it was what needed to happen.
Yeah, you and your friend Lauren.
Oh yeah, Lauren. Lauren was there.
And Becca, you also discovered something about me that I didn't know you didn't know.
Is it that you love Survivor?
It is that I love Survivor.
I think I really just didn't understand how like how fundamental it was in your life.
Oh, it's a big
It's like
thing in my
big
life.
part of your life.
It is a big part of my life. So Becca, I forget how we even got on the conversation of Survivor, but we just started talking about it and I started describing like these super in-depth details about the show to Becca and Lauren. And I think Lauren was the first one to say, you seem to know a lot more about this show than like I thought you would.
Yeah, Lauren was like, wait, you know so much about this show. You must like really like the show. And you're like,
and I'm like,
oh yeah, I've seen like every season.
I've seen all 40 seasons, many of them multiple times. Yeah.
So interesting.
So Beck and I are, despite being, besties who have a podcast together, we're still very much learning things about each other.
And it's so beautiful.
Every day we unpeel
every single day
that layer of the onion. But it was funny because I was like, because then we were talking about all these different reality shows, and then I was like, well, Becca, you'd like this season. I was explaining to them the mechanics.
Yeah.
if I had to move board one out.
And I'm like, and we also then like trained off into other reality shows and stuff. And I actually watched this week for the first time in a long time, after we talked about it, a Naked and Afraid episode.
Oh, wow.
Where actually so they were in the middle of the jungle this time, and the male partner was actually a little person.
Oh.
And like the reaction of the woman upon meeting him, she got scared.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh my God, they set him up for failure. Like,
I know.
To scare her like that. Yeah. And they did not get along, those two.
That's tough.
And
That's
I didn't stick around to see if they made it, but
yeah, I did not stick around.
Yeah.
You said I'm out on this, honestly.
It got too uncomfortable, honestly.
Yeah. You felt for the man who was just not liked because of something out of his control, ultimately.
But he was also mean. He was very cruel towards her. So there was so many elements of just
there's a lot going on.
I couldn't keep up.
I can see that being upsetting. I can totally see that being upsetting. Yeah, I always think that show's interesting because as, a dyed-in-the-wool Survivor fan, I just cannot imagine them doing that obviously they get compensated for being on the show, as everyone who is on TV does get compensated. But the fact that there is no prize money for completing Naked and Afraid is like confounding to me.
It's truly crazy because the only thing that would make me stay in the woods for literally one day would be money.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a wilderness person like that.
Hmm.
Like I need to be getting paid actively.
Yeah, and another thing that differentiates it from Survivor is that there's no strategy. Like you're just
Except
existing.
for, yeah, the strategy to stay alive
Hmm.
in like the toughest circumstance. Like the fact that they don't give you water.
Yeah,
You have to find that.
you have to find them. Do they usually
That's
drop them off
crazy.
like where they look like they're in more like woodsy locations?
It's usually, well, it's different every time. Sometimes one time I saw one that was like just on a beach, like on a
Uh-huh.
random island, and they had to
Mm-hmm.
like cross the entire island. But
Mm-hmm.
usually they are in like some sort of marsh or jungle where there is like water around, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like usually unsafe to drink because it's
Mm-hmm.
still. And you need to find like moving water, and then you also have to like distill it or like cleanse it with
Yeah.
fire.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to drink boiling hot water when you're super thirsty, which honestly would make me puke.
I'm gonna be honest, it
So,
make me puke. Yeah, Survivor's always in a tropical environment,
mm,
and I don't know if they can do this, but I would always love to see it in like a cold environment. Like if they put them in like the Canadian wilderness, like what would happen? And there's snow.
whoa.
I think it's
And
because
wolf,
it's I think it's because honestly it's much easier to die of like extreme cold than it is extreme warmth.
I would say that, yeah.
Like
Uh,
cold is much more
naked and afraid,
inhospitable.
you could not be cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Oh yeah, because
so
they don't
easy
have any
to
clothes to
die in the
protect
cold.
themselves.
No,
Have you
famously,
have you
they
also
are
heard
naked fully.
have you also heard that when your body is experiencing hypothermia, it convinces you it's really hot?
Yes, I've heard of the delusions of hypothermia.
Yeah, you get really hot, and so you try to make yourself even colder. Thus,
Well, well, have you heard of those? Remember that weird thing that happened in the 1900s where like in somewhere in on a Russian mountain, there was like I look like a conspiracy theorist, but on a Russian mountain, they found like this old campsite with like a bunch of scientists who were like frozen and naked, all in different spots of like where they set up their tent. And there's so many theories to what happened, but it lit like their tent looked like it had been mauled apart, but there was like no like animal anything anywhere around. So they think one theory is aliens. The second theory is that they all had hypothermia when actually insane got themselves naked because they were so hot and like mauled each other.
which is kind of hot now that you said
Yeah.
it like that.
Right?
Um,
Be
yeah,
proud.
I'm a little happy for hi guys. I'm a little turned on. No, that does sound like something I will need to like obsessively research after we get off this Zoom call.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's crazy. I love stuff like that. Do you know something else I
Me
love?
too.
The idea of
But
remote peoples.
I was just talking to my dad about this. Like the thought of peoples living in the Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah, like secluded from contemporary society, or the North
Wow.
Sentinelese people, which is that it's an island off the coast of Sri Lanka, and they
Mm-hmm.
are notoriously aggressive towards outsiders. Like if you fly a helicopter over North Sentinel Island, they start to throw rocks. They start to
I love it.
they start to throw spears. There have been multiple people who like tried to go and then they just kill them.
Why do I feel like I could be the one to change them though? I
Becca's
could
like,
do
I
it.
will. Well, it's really interesting because it's like we don't know how many of them there are. We don't know, like, we just don't know anything about their
Yeah.
society. We know so little
Because they're just so, yeah, I love it. It's
because
so
they're
cool.
so isolated and they are boundary setting divas because they're saying that every time somebody tries
Say
to encroach, they
no,
say no.
no,
They say
you may
no, we
not.
don't want it. We don't want it here.
And
They don't
I
know
get
COVID.
that.
They don't know about COVID. They don't know about
Oh my
iPhones.
God. What bliss. What bliss.
No, yeah.
Wow.
I remote people really that's cool. Like that's
That's
kind
so
of punk rock when you
interesting.
think about it.
Oh, so anarchist.
Just
To
being
not
like,
even
no.
know about capitalism. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That rocks.
Yeah. Yeah. They're true. They're doing it. Becca, something else, which was the whole kind of Aristotelian telos of you coming to Pittsburgh, was so that you could get new tattoos, from my understanding.
Oh, yeah. You better believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the one I can show right now is I got this extra tongue and flame thing that is
Yeah.
from Jennifer's body. And
Mm-hmm.
then I also got a matching little poodle angel dog, which is under my shirt. So I
Mm-hmm.
won't show it right now. Beware. And then I got the burning bear boyfriend from Midsummer to match Danny from Midsummer, which I already have.
Becca also
Um,
famously has tattooed on her body.
yeah. And speaking of Midsummer, happy summer solstice.
Yes, we are recording on the summer solstice.
Cancer season starts
Cancer
today. So
season, the
good.
sun rising on Cancer, lots of new energy in the air.
I love it.
I personally celebrated by going out and sitting in the park and reading and
Oh,
listening to Lord's Solar Power.
what better way to celebrate?
Literally. And of course, Lord
I
had the newsletter coming out for the solstice. So
mhm.
I got to read
Lucky
that.
times.
My little Kiwi pen pal.
Ugh. Oh. Yeah, I ate some good fruit and had like
Mhm.
a joyful meal with family. So
Yeah.
so
And that's another
lovely.
way to celebrate. Speaking of Cancer,
Hmm.
Becca, this is
Yeah.
kind of your birthday show.
You could say that
Yes, it's
when
very
you're
much the Becca
listening.
birthday show because by the time you're listening to this,
Yeah,
Becca's 22nd birthday will have passed
by one day. It's
by
so
one day.
true. Because my birthday, June 23rd. Something about this podcast, June 24th.
It's
Crazy.
coming out on June 24th.
Can I believe it?
So, Becca, what are maybe some things you learned in the 21st year? What are things you're looking forward to in the 22nd year? Intentions you were taking into the 22nd year? What how is this extra kind of loop around the earth, or excuse me, loop around the sun while you are on this earth?
Around the
Um
earth. True.
what does
True.
this all mean to you?
That is such a good question. Well, I think what I learned in my 21st year, which was such a roller coaster, it
Mm-hmm.
was the best year. It also was the worst year in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is like I just truly need to worry less about what's going on outside, if you know what I mean.
Say that.
Like just worrying about other people and worrying about embarrassment is something I spend way too much time on even
Mm-hmm.
today.
Yeah.
Um, so I think like trying to actually heal myself is going to be my 22nd year goal
Darn.
and have more fun and create more balance in my life.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Having fun is such a good goal.
It's so good,
I feel like
especially
people don't
like
talk about it enough.
especially after coming out of like these times and still
Mm-hmm.
being in like terrible times.
Yeah.
It's just we have to like refine the way that we're all going to like have any bit of normalcy.
Yes.
So, I'm going to commit myself to that.
We are realigning. No, that was my main
We
goal
are
for like
realigning.
that was my main goal going into my final semester of college. I was like, school, whatever, all this stuff.
Mhm.
But my main thing, above all else, I want to have fun, especially because,
Yeah.
our college experience was so much clouded by the pandemic, all that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to be like,
Yeah.
okay, this last little bit, I'm just going to focus on having a good time with me and the girls. And to some extent, I did that. But it's also very hard because, as one of my professors said when I expressed that I was very stressed to her at like the end of the semester, she goes, there's no 2 weeks in your life that is like specifically more stressful than the last 2 weeks of college.
Ugh, you're telling me.
And I could got
Yeah.
COVID, I could did everything. And I was like, wow, that's very affirming to me in this moment because
It's only up from here.
yeah. So as Becca and I have talked about before, we saw Betty Ho live one time. And then after that, I actually listened to Betty Ho on the Las Culturistas podcast. And she told the story of how she dropped out of Berklee School of Music like 5 weeks before graduation or whatever, because she got a record deal. And
which is
that
crazy.
that was kind of earlier in the spring semester. And I was like, oh my God, who would drop out of not high school? Who would drop out of college with 5 weeks left? That's crazy. Just power through. And then it got down to like the 3-week, 2-week mark. And I was like, look, Betty Who might have,
I see it.
I see
She
it.
might have had a point.
She might have had several points, actually, I fear.
Oh my God.
And yeah, it's a stressful time in your life, but just know you'll get through it.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
But
that's a really good goal going into the year, Becca.
Thank you. But also my smaller term goal, like for my birthday, is to vlog again. So hopefully when the podcast comes out, that will still be viewable, because last year's vlog went so well. And yeah, to celebrate, I have a photo of me as my virtual background today.
Yeah, I was trying to segue because we didn't address it, because a lot of changes in our lives.
Yeah.
Becca has herself as a background.
I
have a new haircut. It's like everything's happening all at once. And
yeah, it's very cerebral.
Yes. So Becca has a lovely picture of herself. You are not seeing double vision. For all my drinkers out there. You are shout out to my girls who like a good cocktail.
The best way to celebrate manic pixie jump scares, definitely by drinking and watching.
For our audio listeners, you just missed Becca kind of trying to pose, and Becca does this thing where she puts her eyebrow up in a very specific way, and it just makes me guffaw every time.
Because I look very suspicious.
Yeah, you're like, what is going on? And I try to imitate it sometimes, and I've tried to imitate on several occasions, and you just stand there and laugh at me. Because it looks very funny, probably, because I can't do it very well.
Probably.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that is why I was laughing a little bit.
Chuckling.
Yes. Okay, Becca, I fear the ketchup might have just been caught up.
Has been caught.
And we do have a lot to dive into in our episode. So.
Very much so.
It's weird because these are usually a rambly mess that I then have to kind of decipher after what is like good from what is bad. But, I think today. This
went pretty smooth.
Yeah, pretty smooth. Maybe we're just, becoming better podcasters. The 5th episode. There's something about it.
Could be. Okay. It could be.
Okay.
All right.
And so we are going to throw to a little break, and then we are going to return and get into the topic of today's episode.
Ooh.
Guys, I'm scared.
And we're back.
Oh wow.
Welcome back.
Yes.
Okay, so for today's episode, me and Quinn, sort of as a continuation of the story of us going backwards, which is really interesting, we are going to talk about, Quinn wrote, a fraught and formative era in basically everyone's life. High school.
Yes.
So true.
And Becca was very adamant. Like, this was one of Becca's, when we had the first MPJ creative meeting, where we set out that we would not, one, call her daddy each other. One of Becca's primary things that she wanted to discuss on this podcast was our high school experiences.
Because I'm so interested in people's high school experiences, especially with people I've met in college. Like, just crazy that you had a home life that I have no idea about.
Yes.
Like, I think it's so telling and so interesting. So I can't wait to hear about yours and tell you about mine, because honestly, I feel like a lot of this will also be kind of new info to you.
Yes, so, I'm very excited because Becca tells me some things about her life in high school, and I'm fascinated. And then also I tell people about my high school experience, and they sometimes look at me like I have 6 heads, because my high school experience was a bit unorthodox, I would say.
Yeah, fair enough. So Do you want to start off by telling us, like, sort of how big your school was, what sort of area it was in, like the fundamental stuff, so that we can, like, get a better idea of, like, what we're working with here for you?
Okay, so my school was about 1,100 students, and it was in the city of Wilmington in Delaware. So I lived in a suburb of Wilmington. So I actually had a commute to my high school. It was usually about like 30 minutes in the morning to actually get to school, which a lot of people are surprised about. And that is because I did not go to public school. I actually went to private school. And what kind of private school? An
Mm,
all quote unquote male Catholic school.
wow.
So that was something I'm sure a lot of these listeners were not expecting.
It definitely is surprising. I would not guess that about you.
It's something a lot of the girls are surprised
Was
about when I tell them.
was there, like, public schools that you could have gone to, and, like, for whatever reason you went to this private school?
Yes. So something about Delaware that's very unique, or at least unique to my school, is that there are truly so many options for high school,
Okay.
at least where I was, like the area I was in, because I went to public school K through 8, just like my public feeder schools. And then there was like a charter school. There are actually multiple charter schools if we want to get real technical, but there were charter schools, there were magnet schools, one for the arts, one for math and sciences. Then
Oh,
there were like kind of super upscale, like fancy private schools, which my school was private, but it wasn't like, Exeter, like like it wasn't super like shishi, like it was definitely still nice and stuff, but
uppity. Yeah.
yeah, I would.
Hmm.
And like not in a way where people are like, oh, we were comfortable, but like in a way where it was like actually just like it was more Catholic school than private school. And so
Gotcha.
there were parts of it that were very like nice and a little bit more upgraded than some other like public schools, but it wasn't like, dormitories, like huge atrium, like none of that.
Crazy.
And so, yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
super weird or anything like that. And so there were also public schools I could have gone to, but it was honestly just because, and I did consider going to my public school because I really liked my experience in my middle school. My elementary school was definitely it was like the nicest elementary school in kind of our district. It was very kind of, to be frank, like racially homogenous. So mostly white
Hmm.
people, because it was kind of reflective of like the suburbia I kind of grew up in. And so
Hmm.
then going to middle school, it was a lot more of a mixed kind of population. And so I was exposed to a lot of people who I did not get exposed to through my elementary school experience. And I actually ended up really enjoying kind of the diversity that my middle school experience offered. It helped me to get to know people in a
Hmm.
different way. It changed the way I looked at the world. And so I really enjoyed that experience. And so I wanted something that was a little bit more of a continuation of that in some ways. But I originally didn't want to go to the high school I ended up going to because my brother went there. And as somebody who grew up
Hmm.
and I don't think we've talked about this on the pod yet, a younger sibling, youngest of two, younger
Also, so
sibling.
surprising to me about
Really?
you.
Really? Well,
Yeah, I
what was
guess,
your
like,
original
okay,
thought, would you
so
say?
um older or only child, actually, for you?
Really?
I guess because most of my college friends are older siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I don't know. There's nothing really, like, I don't know. There's no, like,
Mm-hmm.
personality traits I
I never,
attach to that, but just a feeling I get.
it's weird because I feel very like youngest. Like I feel like being the youngest person in my family really like has shaped my experience, but nobody ever guesses like youngest, which is interesting.
Hmm.
But so yeah,
Yeah.
I grew up with a brother who was 3.5 years older than me. And I kind of felt like I was always in his shadow a little bit. And so I didn't want to go to this school and have it be more of the same, because my brother literally graduated the year before I started.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just a thing where the other schools, if I wanted to apply to get into like the magnet schools or the charter schools, I had to do it like after I'd already been accepted to this school. And so I was like, by that point, I also had I tried to get into some of the magnet schools for middle school, and I got rejected from all of them. And I
Oh,
had a little bit of a mental health episode when I was in the 6th grade, honestly. And so
yeah.
it was a little bit of a defense response where I got like accepted somewhere and it felt kind of good. And so I was just like, yeah, why not?
Just go
Why
for it.
not?
Yeah.
And I still, even kind of after I decided not to still apply to some of like the other schools that required me to like apply to them, I still did consider going
Mm-hmm.
to the public school because there were a lot of cool opportunities there. But I ultimately did end up going to private school.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's kind
I
of how
see
I got there.
your story. Well,
Mm-hmm.
my school's very different because I went to public school.
Yeah.
I was in this school district it's in Allentown, Pennsylvania, called Parkland School District. And the high school had around 4,000 kids in it.
Mm.
And um huge school. And there's 2 middle schools that lead into this one high school and
Mm-hmm.
like 10 elementary schools or something like that. And
That's
my
crazy.
mom actually also taught in the district, but not at the same elementary school as me. But yeah, so I
Wow.
kind of went to high school with people I knew for forever because even if they didn't go to the same school as me, I usually had played like a sport with them or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's at the same side of that coin is there were so many people you couldn't know everyone. There was people who I was graduating with who I had never seen before in my life.
Yeah.
Like just because there's 1,000 kids, so you're not gonna meet everyone.
That's insane. I was kind of in a similar boat, but I really had no excuse because my graduating class was like sub 250.
Wow.
I'd seen everybody. I'd been like, oh, I've seen their face before, but I was like,
Hmm.
oh, that's their name? Like at graduation
Crazy.
ceremony. It's crazy. Like you can just be in the same
That's
environment. Was your school?
yeah.
So, I mean, obviously with like 4,000 kids, like the school has to be huge, right?
Yeah, it's pretty
Mm.
big, but also it's like I'm pretty sure that they made plans to like expand on it even because we were still like every school like running out of space, having teachers on carts and stuff, like
Oh, yeah.
craziness, people like overflowing.
One of the
Yeah,
saddest things ever
just so many
is
people.
when or not a professor. I called like professors, teachers for such a long time, and now I'm back to calling like, and I've swung so hard the other way that where I
Teachers,
call like teachers,
professors.
professors. But it
Oh
was always so
no,
sad when you just saw a teacher with like a cart,
it's
and it's like
humiliating.
there's nowhere to park that, babe.
It's so sad.
You don't got anywhere to take that home to
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
what are you gonna do?
It's like you have to ask another teacher, be
Where
like,
does it go?
can I put my cart in your room? And then you have to wait for
My
them to
cart
get
go in
there the
your
next
room? Yeah,
morning. What if they're late? Then your whole day is messed up. That's crazy.
so sad.
Yeah,
Exactly.
a
You
lot
don't have
going
your
on
lesson
there.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
So
much.
so then Becca, where were you kind of as you entered high school? Take me back.
Yeah. So it was 2014, which famously I stan. You stan. We all stan.
We all
2014.
stand. As an MPJ listener, you
One of the
signed a contract saying
one
you
of,
would stand.
yes. So think about that.
Mhm.
But yeah, so 8th grade was honestly like one of the best years of my life, and I stand
Mhm.
by that. I had so
Yeah.
much fun. I was like really gaining. Also, I kind of like a little bit popular that year because I was funny on Vine. So people were like, okay, so I had this personality called Becky Ho. And people were calling me that. Like, people would be like, hey, Becky Ho, and say that to me like in high school, like when I didn't know them because they went to like the other middle school. So I was like, wow, this is gonna be great for me. I didn't really do
Becky
much with that.
Ho.
Yeah.
Title
But
of
I was
that
coming in.
possibly.
Oh, I hope so. Oh, I hope and pray.
Wait,
But
HO or
yes,
HOE?
HO.
And that was Becky with a Y?
Nothing Yeah, you better believe it. Yeah.
Okay.
Becky Ho.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
So,
just make like stupid little vines. And so,
okay.
yeah,
And so
basically I
it
just
made
came
the
into ninth
rounds.
grade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people had heard about it. I was
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna be popular in high school. And you know, ninth grade is sort of tough because you have to like rework all of like your friends and stuff like that and
Mm-hmm.
like rethink about what I don't know, like how people interact with each other is just very changed. It's like, especially in my school where like two already huge schools are now joining. And now you like see all these like 18-year-olds all the time. And you just got done with middle school. Like that is literally crazy. The
Yeah.
difference of just
Scary.
being done with middle school and about to go to college is like actually insane to me.
That's yeah. Yeah. And
It
no,
like,
I've never heard
wow.
you. Wow. I've never heard anybody put it that way.
Yeah, because
That's
a lot of schools, especially in Pittsburgh, split up their 9 and 10 and their 11 and 12. So it's like a lower level and
really.
an upper level high school.
Oh,
Yeah, but like
wow.
no one does it near me.
No, me neither.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was sort of like what going into ninth grade was like. I also
Mm-hmm.
um played lacrosse for most of high school.
Yeah. This is another thing I want to get
I know we've
into.
talked about because me and you were theater majors famously
Yeah.
in college, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really do theater until college. I was always
Yeah.
a sports girl. I also played soccer my ninth grade year. So I was a sporty girl. That was like where my territory was. My friends were. Um, yeah,
That's so interesting to me because
right.
it's not that you're unathletic or anything. I've never seen you have to like show athleticism really, but it's just I wouldn't expect you to be super sporty.
Yeah, and I mean, I on it. It's not where I found my joy.
Mm-hmm.
Like
It's just
I
something you
was not
did.
living for it, but it was just something I did. And like I definitely did enjoy like parts of it, especially the social parts. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was fun to be like a team and stuff.
Yeah, team. Yeah.
Um, but like I hated practices. I liked games because I thought that was like fun. I saw like the drama in that, the conflict, the
You really get the
climax, the
excitement.
resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was talking
of
to
the
somebody
game. But
recently about
yeah.
how like pushed sports are on like in American culture, like how big sports are.
Hmm.
Because as somebody who never liked them, like
Yeah.
never really wanted anything to do with them, but like felt kind of forced into it at different points in my life. It's just very like it's pervasive. And it feels like if you don't play a sport, like you're missing out on something.
Yeah, very
Mm-hmm.
much. And like it's it's kind of presented to kids as like the only way to be active, but it's like, bro, I can go run laps in the backyard and have a great time.
Literally.
I don't need to be like have a coach yelling at me to do that.
Emotionally abusing me, yeah.
So, yeah.
Um
Yeah. But
and
that
so
was sort of
you
my like going into high school mentality. What
mhm.
was yours like? How was like coming out of middle school for you?
Coming out of middle school was interesting because like you, I feel like I had, my friends in middle school. A lot of those friends weren't gonna be coming with me to high school, obviously. And something that complicated it for me is that there was actually a lot of complications. Like it's kind of crazy looking back that I actually did this because I didn't really have, I guess I kind of did. I can point to different people in my life, but being a queer person, I found myself more drawn to women and kind of feminine energies as a child, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the fact that I was about to go into like a hyper masculine environment, I feel like should have freaked me out a little bit more. And it definitely did freak me out because I truly
Mm-hmm.
just didn't, I wasn't super keen on interacting with like men,
Yeah.
which was interesting. Like all my close friends in middle school, sans like one were girls. Um,
Yeah.
and like same for elementary school and stuff. And so the fact that like at least during the school day there was going to be no like female students was kind of crazy for me. And then also, as I mentioned, my school was a Catholic school, And I was so resistant to church as a child.
Mhm.
Like, I knew there was something dark side about it. I knew there was
I
something
could
I did
tell.
not want to take place in, mostly because it was boring. Let's say it. Let's say it.
Yeah, so boring.
So my family is Catholic, and so not like super Catholic, but
Mhm.
we did go to church as a child, as or during my childhood. And one of my
Mhm.
favorite pictures now that I'm older is the day of my brother's first Holy Communion. It's my family, like my mom, my dad, and my brother, all like posing on this front porch of our steps, or no, on the, excuse me, on the front steps of our house. And they're all smiling.
Okay.
It's like, oh, it's a day to celebrate. Me as like a 4-year-old or whatever, crying. Like I could not even
Yeah.
muster a smile for the picture. And it's like you think if that
Oh,
was the picture that
wow.
got
You
printed, it was the
knew
best one. Like,
the terror in the other photos. I can't imagine.
no, literally, like I was like I yeah, and so I hated going to church as a kid. I remember not because like I obviously didn't understand what was going on. I just thought it was boring.
Hmm.
And now that I'm older, it was also I was young at the time, but it's when the whole sex scandal in the Catholic Church was just starting
Mm,
to unfold. And so my
yeah.
mother was also kind of like, huh, maybe I don't want to be sending my children to like Sunday school. Um,
Yeah, maybe.
and so like we would go to church on holidays sometimes, but still I was not like I didn't enjoy it. I didn't get the ceremony quite yet. I didn't understand all of it. And so
Hmm.
I was also kind of I remember being more skeptical of like because you had to take like religion classes, like that was like a big part of the curriculum. Like you would like same as like history and English, like you went to religion class every day.
Which
And
is
so
crazy.
yeah, and so that was something I also remember being very apprehensive about. And it was just very
Hmm.
obviously coming from public school, which is completely secular, like
Hmm.
it was a weird thing to think about even.
Yeah.
And like because get this, we prayed before every class. We like had morning prayer in the morning with like the whole school over the PA system. We prayed before our lunch period. And then also, I should say that we had to wear Western business attire to school every day. And so I fully had to wear like a collared button down shirt, a tie, khakis or slacks, like some kind of loafers. And then when weather permitted, so like the first couple weeks of school, we wouldn't. But then once it got cool enough, we would wear sports coats, like jackets.
That is honestly torturous to me.
Yeah. And some of our school
That
wasn't air
seems
conditioned.
terrible.
Like a good portion of our school was not air conditioned because it was so old.
That is something like, how is that allowed?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
being in that and then being hot, like I would freak out. I'd freak
Yeah, no,
out.
the whole middle section of the school. It was nice because like if you were like a social studies, like whenever you had your social studies or science classes, that was like a newer wing of the school. And so it would be air conditioned over there. But like in the middle of the school where you have like English, religion, language, all that kind of stuff, no.
Screw you.
Yeah, no air
Wow.
conditioning. Tell me how I'm supposed to breathe with no air.
That is, that sucks.
And so that's kind of all swirling around like just as I start school, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Okay.
I assume because it was
Well,
public school, you didn't have like, did you have like an orientation or did you have like an anything to like prime you for your first day as a ninth grader, a big kid,
oh,
if you will?
yeah, great question. So in eighth grade, actually, they have like a day where you go take tours.
Oh,
And
that's
it
fun.
became kind of a full circle thing because in my 11th and 12th grade years, I was much like you, a Pathfinder, I was part of the welcome pack. So I gave tours to eighth graders, and also like if new people came from like just in the middle of the year, I would give them a tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time I gave this girl a tour, and I was taking her through like the main hallway while, and then the bell rang and class let out.
Mm-hmm.
And the hallway, like they gave us like um 5, I think, to up to 7 minutes to get to class
Mm-hmm.
because you had to wait in line to go on the stairs. That's how
That's
crowded things were.
crazy.
Like, and this girl who was from California, a really small school, saw like all the people in the hallway for that first time. She went, "Whoa, I've never seen that many people." I was like, "Oh,
Oh my
oh
God.
boy,
You're in for a rude
you might be
awakening,
in for
girl.
it."
Yeah.
I was like, "I don't know how to unscare you because it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
that crowded all the time."
Yeah.
So, yeah. But you do get that tour and it's kind of nice, but it doesn't prepare you that much
Mm-hmm.
um for everything. Yeah. Did you get any sort of like initiation type thing?
Oh, it's a big thing in my high school. So
Oh.
freshman orientation. Well, first of all, most people have what's called a shadow day. And
Mm,
so that's a time when they're in eighth grade or maybe even seventh grade. I think some people do it a little bit younger, where they shadow one of the first year students.
okay.
And so like people would just have like a shadow with them is what we would call them. And so similarly to you, you could sign up to like be somebody who has shadows and stuff.
Mm.
And so, but then your first like actual day as a student, it would be like the Thursday before school started. It was freshman orientation. And you would come, your whole class was there, and it was like an all day thing, like literally like 8 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. at night. And
Oh my
you would
God.
just do a bunch of different things. Like we started the day with an address from the principal and the president of our school. And then we took our pictures for like our IDs, because we did have student IDs that got us like in and out of the building and stuff. We got sorted because my school, much like
Um,
Harry Potter, did have houses.
what?
Yeah, we had 8 different houses.
I, I, I don't even know. Like, why? For
I don't
what?
know. They do it at some colleges, and like I've heard it's not a completely like unique thing to my high school, but we do have houses. And so it was basically like an extra way to build camaraderie between students. And so
Okay.
there were 8 houses. They were all named after influential people in the school. I was in the only house that was named for a woman. So check, kind
Slay.
of slay of me. It also had a beautiful color scheme. It was like, oh, Becca, you would love the colors. It was blue. It was like baby blue, like your favorite shade, and
Ooh.
white.
Hmm.
It would always be like,
Oh,
my
that's really
lanyard was
nice.
blue with white lettering on it.
That's cute.
And so that was like your homeroom. And then we started to call them chapter towards the end of my high school career. But
Okay.
like that would be all people in your house. We would do house games, house competitions. Like that would be like an assembly,
Okay.
like during some different
So
times of the year.
my middle school had teams, which was
Mm-hmm.
like the teachers that you had, like a group of teachers per
Yeah.
subject, but we didn't call them
Mm-hmm.
houses, which that the term houses is what I think presented itself so strange to me.
Yeah. So you would get sorted, and then you kind of spent the whole day with like the members of your house and stuff. And so um we like we would do our first mass, we would do like icebreakers together. We did kind of all that. We did some like general kind of like, what's high school like kind of stuff on that day. And then it kind of ended in the house games, and we played the house game. And the first day, I felt like a little bit of a celebrity for multiple reasons. Because, first of all, one of the events was tug of war, and we had this huge rope. And it wasn't just like pulling, there was also an aspect where there were loops at the end of the rope. And so somebody put the loop over their head, and like had it like around their waist, and they just pulled, like they just ran the opposite way. And that was part of like the
Oh my
tugging.
God.
Yeah. And so I was
That's so fun.
elected to be the anchor of my house's tug of war rope. And so basically, like we were
Yeah.
doing it, I put it on and I just start running. First of all, it's a sharp pain, like down, like right
Yeah.
around my waist. But I'm just like going because I'm like pumped up
Got
at
to.
that point. And then I'm like, and then suddenly we've won. And it's like, okay, work. And then they're like, okay, well,
Do
now
what
we
you
have
have
the
to
next
do.
round because there were 8 houses. And so you faced off against one, and
It's
it
a
was like a,
tournament.
yeah, it's like a tournament type thing. And I'm like, what, we have to do it again? And yes, you did. We did. I did it 3 times, and we did win all 3. So
Oh my God.
yeah,
Amazing. I'm
I
so
felt like
proud
a
of
big
you.
deal. And then at the end of the
Yeah.
day, one representative from each house would like come up and give a speech, and I got elected to do it for, or I might have volunteered to do it for my house. And so I basically got up there. I blacked out for like a good 5 minutes. I cannot tell you what I talked about. However, everyone who was there that day will tell you it's one of the funniest things they've ever seen.
Just whatever you said.
Perhaps if we get my mother on the phone, I remember she
On the
always
phone.
talks about it. It like went down in like history as like a thing that like I did, and like people referenced it for my entire high school career, like to the point
Wow.
where it's my junior year. I come back for school my junior year, which is 2 years later, and the dean of students comes up to me and says, yeah, nobody beat your speech this year, don't worry. And I was like, something I wasn't thinking about, but thank you.
Wow.
But
Making an
yeah,
impact.
it
I love
was
it.
people just, yeah, people really loved it. People loved me, and the feeling was mutual.
Wow.
um and so after that freshman orientation day, I was feeling like a little bit of a baller, which was nice because obviously, as I expressed, there were some things that were a little stacked against me when it came
Sure.
to acclimating to this new environment I was in. So it
Yeah.
was very nice to have that first day to kind of get my bearings a little bit. And
Yeah.
so yeah.
Well, so I guess like because there's so much that happens in high school,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just want to touch on like the crazy points through each year, starting
Mm-hmm.
off at ninth grade, which we've set up so well for our listeners about what
Mm-hmm.
sort of mental state and physical state we were in our
Mm-hmm.
environments. Um, so I know I can start with some stuff from ninth grade,
Uh-huh.
which is something that happened just sort of right off the bat of me entering into ninth grade was, and this says a lot about the people I was going to school with. Is I walk into school one day with my friend at the time, and she said, "Did you hear the news?" And I said, "Well, no." And I literally just pulled up Google. She didn't have to tell me anything or what to type because it was the first thing recommended. A girl in the grade below us had actually murdered her mom the night before and was going to prison. And my friend goes,
I'm
"Yeah,
sorry, I
she
don't
lives
mean to
really close
laugh.
to me." No, like rest in peace, mama. Rest in peace,
Oh
mama.
my god.
But like, I literally,
Holy shit.
I know. No, I know. And I'm sorry to say this to all of you because like you have to now know about this, but I had to know about it. And it was crazy.
Oh
I
my
was like,
god.
wow. So what? Yeah. And I was like, I've been in high school for like less than a few months and this is happening. Um, but basically like what happened was she had a boyfriend that was like very much older than her and like obviously manipulating her.
Oh.
And her and the boyfriend drove the mom's car into like a body of water, basically, with her in it, I presume, which is literally crazy.
I'm about to crash into the water.
To the water, gonna take you with me. Um, yeah, so that event obviously inspired Charlie XCX to write
That's tough.
Crash.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for the work that you did. Also in ninth grade, it was sort of a violent year for me because the other significant event that I wanted to talk about here um, was that I also had another friend who I was close with in eighth grade. And this experience with this person sort of shaped um, my my trepidation towards people because
Mm-hmm.
I did consider her to be one of my closest friends. Until one day, something happened like at lunch, which like high school lunch, like what a time. Because
Yeah.
my lunch period, there was four different lunch periods. So like
Yeah.
you were kind of with friends and also with randos that were like in your period. You just had
Mm-hmm.
to like make it work.
My school had
Um,
three.
this- okay, okay. Slay.
Wait, so
But
did
this
your,
girl,
can I ask
yeah.
before we go on, did your cafeteria have like
hmm
sections?
No, you could sit wherever you wanted.
Really? It was
It was
like,
just a big circle.
it was kind of an unofficial rule at my high school, but like you couldn't really violate it. But there was a freshman like section of our lunchroom.
Oh, interesting.
It was like a form of hazing. Like it was like the lightest form of hazing possible, but like you
Right.
had, if you were a freshman, you had to sit
Had to
at the
sit in the
high top
section.
tables.
Interesting.
And
No,
then
it's
once you
just sort
were
of like,
older, you could just sit wherever you want. But
yeah. No, you could like sit wherever you wanted. And then, but like after a week of the lunch, like that was where you sat. Like, and if you
mm,
moved, people would, that would be, that would be bad.
like, what
Um,
are you
but
doing?
anyway, I forget what happened. I forget what even happened between me and this girl, but I, um, I think she got mad at me. Like I couldn't like drive her somewhere, or my parents couldn't like drive her somewhere
Mm.
with me. So, and I was like, she really took that to heart. And at night before school one time, she did text me and say, you're ugly, all this, blah, blah, blah. Like, I hate you. And tomorrow I'm going to bring a knife and stab you at lunch. And I was like, hmm.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, wow. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, honestly, I honestly don't know what to do about that.
That's
So I was like, should I
terrifying.
tell someone? It was bad. And I was like, I think I should just like go to school and act like it's normal and maybe I'll just like avoid it. And so I did. I went to school as normal. I didn't say a thing. And you know what? She comes up to me at lunch and I was like, okay, okay, I'm ready. And she goes, can we talk? And I don't know why I walked with her into a private area.
Talk about this knife in your abdomen.
No, literally. But I did. I walked with her to a private
Oh my
area
God.
and she said, I'm really sorry for what I said yesterday.
Okay.
She didn't stab me. She just apologized. And I said, okay. And then I kind of kept her, keep your enemies close and your friends closer. Wait, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I was keeping her close. Thank you
Not
for giving me the time
closer.
to switch that. Um,
Um,
closer. But, and then later in the year, she actually revealed to me a secret. And then she ended up getting expelled and pregnant within the
two for
year.
one.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that all happened in my ninth grade
That's
year.
so
It was like
wild.
so much violence. Yeah. So
That's a
my
lot.
ninth grade year was very, very significant. Yeah, in crime.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, how did your ninth year go?
So my ninth grade year was very interesting. I don't remember a lot from the time, but I got involved
Mm-hmm.
with theater right away because I'd been
Okay.
doing, I like eighth grade is when I really started to do theater consistently. Like I was doing like I would be in like within the span of the year, I would be in like 8, 9 shows, like through like local like theater groups, all these different school, all the different stuff. And so my high school
Mm-hmm.
had a pretty good theater program, and they had just brought in a new director of the arts. And so we started at the same time. So it was fun because we were like his first like class of like freshmen. And so the first show we did, I actually assistant directed. It was the beginning of my directing career.
Oh,
And in some way it led me to Miss Becca because so my first high school
In many
show,
ways.
my first high school show was a play called Picasso at the Le Panegile, which is a play about
Wow.
Einstein and Picasso meeting in a bar that kind of evades the structure of time and space.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of my first foray into high school theater. It was a very weird play. It was not the play you'd usually see done at a high school, but that was kind of a theme for my high school's theater director because he was very much like into doing more experimental stuff with us rather than the stuff that like the parents would like the most, if that made sense.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Did you
Yes,
enjoy
and
that?
yes, and some it very much shaped who I am as like an artist
Mm-hmm.
now because I feel like I'm always like there's that part of me that because of like my mentors and stuff I want to be different and I want to be doing something because I'm very much one of my artistic philosophies is like why say it if it's already been said. And so
Mm-hmm.
also like if you can't do anything new with something then why do it? And so like that's why sometimes
Yeah.
like as somebody who grew up as like a musical theater kid, like I love Spring Awakening, but like something about me, I don't need to see it again at this point because like nobody can like do anything new with it really since like Deaf West's production,
Right.
obviously, which I also did
Yeah.
see my freshman year. Really cool because my high school
Ooh.
also offered American Sign Language as a quote unquote like foreign language. And so that is when I started my
Yeah.
ASL studies. So it's not something we've really talked about on the podcast before, but I am,
Yeah.
I would say, fluent in ASL, American Sign Language, for
Mm-hmm.
those of you who
Mm-hmm.
are not acquainted. I studied it all 4 years of high school, and then I got an ASL certificate at the University of Pittsburgh. And so, yeah,
Slay.
that's something else that was kind of going on. That was a very new part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
What else do I want to talk about? Oh, so as for religious education, I actually had a really cool religion teacher my first year. His name was Mr. Johnson. He was the only Black teacher at my school at that time, which I think is worth
Oh, wow.
mentioning. Yeah, like in a school where there were at least like 50
Mm-hmm.
teachers on staff, there was one, one Black teacher. And
Wow.
it is not much better, especially because Mr. Johnson does not teach there anymore. There are now more people in like administration and there are faculty members who are Black. And then like, not even like
Mm-hmm.
Black specifically, like of color. Like there were just it
Yeah.
was like the entirety of the faculty and
Just
staff of my
known.
school was so white. Like not even like, yeah.
Wow.
And so, just want to note that,
Yeah.
not that like Mr. Johnson being Black like made anything like, particularly like it has any bearing on the story really, but just an interesting tidbit about my
Right.
high school. And so he was
Yeah.
this really cool like old guy, and he was really funny, and he talked like this, and
Oh.
he was just like
Oh, how
he
fun.
he understood that he was a little bit of like a joke, and like he understood, and he taught like the whole. So our first year of religion was a class called CSI, not crime scene investigation, but Catholic Salesian
Okay.
identity.
Okay.
And so Salesian refers to St. Francis de Sales, who was the patron saint of my school. And so CSI was that first year
Okay.
class. We all had iPads. It was an iPad school. So everybody had their own iPad. He said, no, no, baby, they go in the hotel.
You're kidding.
He called it the iPad Hotel, and it was like a series of cubbies. And so like you didn't use your iPad in his
To
class.
put your iPad.
Yeah.
Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God.
Yeah. And so like,
Did you like having the iPad?
uh, they were fine. I mean, I feel like it would have just been better if we just used laptops, but I don't know. I'm not a very big tablet girl. I'm not an iPad kid.
Yeah, my school didn't have that when I went,
Also,
like any sort of electronic that they provided.
also maybe because I was like literally, they would always tell like the newest class to get like the newest iPad, and I was like the year before the Apple Pencil.
Oh,
So
so
I didn't
it's
like,
far less useful.
yes, yeah, that part. And so like when the freshmen
Mm-hmm.
came in when I was a sophomore and they had all these Apple pencils, like the iPad Pros, like it made a lot more sense. But I was just stuck on my little like iPad Air 2, being like, yeah. And
Yeah,
so, but I
fighting
love Mr.
away.
Johnson's class. Mr. Johnson is still one of those educators that like sticks out in my mind, being like, he was truly amazing. And he
Mm-hmm.
he was like, in a way where like, because I just had a different, I was interested by like my whole Catholic education. I wouldn't say, I just have a mind for philosophy and spirituality in a way that the way in which like the curriculum in my school was structured, it was very interesting. And there were a bunch of different times where I was really allowed to like get into like the theology of like Catholicism and understand it. And it wasn't in a way where you had to like accept it, obviously, because my school was very respectful of like, if you're not Catholic, like you don't have to be Catholic to go there, but like you do have to like
Mm-hmm.
understand kind of what's
Do the
going on.
classes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and get and like participate in like
Mm-hmm.
the ceremony of it all. But my school was pretty good about like not making it feel like weird. And so that was like my first, oh
Forced.
my God, like so one of our first days of class, he goes on this diatribe about what exactly, but milk.
Okay.
He's, he would always say,
Just everything about it.
he would say, he thought milk, our culture's normalization of drinking cow's milk was a indication of our culture's consumerism, because he would always say, that's not meant for you. That's meant for a 500-pound beast.
Okay.
And
I
he
kind of
showed us.
get that though.
No, he showed it.
I
He was kind of like, I wish I could like, because he was super cool, like on economic issues as well. Like he was like definitely, he was one of those people who was like down with it, because he was like a legit theologian. We like figured it out kind of more as we like got older, but he was like at one point super
mm-hmm.
like high up in like a university's like he could have been like a legit moral theologian, who are like the people who work at like universities and are coming up with like theology and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Whoa.
yeah, so he was really
Good for
legit. He showed
him.
us like a Michael Moore documentary. It was called Catholicism, a Love Story, or not Catholicism, Capitalism, a Love Story. And so like he had all these like, he would make all these like critiques of consumerism and stuff. It was rad. And so yeah, I loved him.
And you're like 14 trying to understand it.
Yeah. And it's like I don't all the way get how this all fits together, but like,
Yeah.
yeah. And so
But rock on.
he was definitely one of my educators at that school who like, it's one of those people. I always like the things where in life where you don't expect to enjoy it, but it was always like, and it was nice because like everybody, like a lot of the students had him, and so it was one of my icebreakers like my first couple weeks. And so like when I would
Mm-hmm.
talk to new people, I'd be like, do you have Mr. Johnson? And they'd be like, yes or no. And so if they said yes, we could like commiserate and be like, oh my goodness, because like nobody had ever had a teacher like him, and that was something that kind of united
Right.
all of us. And so that was really cool. So that was kind of some prevailing things. But I stuck with theater throughout the year. I did all three shows. I did my first like devising experience, because like our second show was like a completely devised show that we like wrote
Ooh.
ourselves. So it was my first experience doing something like that. And yeah, it was also nice because theater did, despite it being an all boys school theater, obviously, you know, your options are limited if you're going to do shows with only men in them.
Mm-hmm.
So we would do them with like our sister schools. So I had two
Yeah.
sister schools that were all girls Catholic schools that were very close to our school. And so we would have like exchange classes during the first period of the day. So some people would do that. But then there were obviously a lot of girls from the other two schools who participated in our theater program. So I got to know a lot of people doing that as well.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. That's
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah.
Exchange periods, is that where you go to a different school for that
Yes.
period?
Or people come to your school.
Oh.
So like
Oh,
band was one
interesting.
of them
Okay.
because like
Hmm.
all the bands from like the school played together, and the band was out of our school, so there would be like all different types of people, like all different students from the schools in like the band hallway in the morning. ASL is one of
Okay.
them. Like two of my friends took ASL there. Like ASL one is like a transfer class. There was a drama class at one of
Hmm.
my sister schools that I did not take, but some of my friends who did theater took. And so there's just a bunch of different options.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Okay, so we made it through first year.
Ninth grade.
So what's happening? What are some big themes sophomore year, Becca?
Yeah. I was still playing lacrosse. I pretty much had like the same friend group my 10th grade year. Something that is crazy that happened my 10th grade year. Well, it was going into 10th grade, the summer of. So to set up in ninth grade, our assistant principal was a cutie. Everyone knew him as like being a cute guy who was like kind of younger.
Oh, I was
Everyone
like,
had a
what?
crush on the assistant a cutie.
A cute date. I was like, is that
He
bad?
was so cute. No, it was so good. But so everyone had a crush on him. Word spreads around over the summer. He had relations with a student. And everyone's like, wait, is that true? By the time that 10th grade commences, he has resigned.
Uh,
So it is true.
can I say also something
Yeah.
very similar happened to me, not at my high school, but
Mm.
my middle school choir director was, he's an artist, or not an artistic, he's a creative person. So he was a little zany, he was
Yeah.
known for it. And so like there'd always be these little rumors and stuff. And so you would be like, that's not true.
Hmm.
And then it was revealed that he was having a relationship
Yeah.
with a student, which it was really upsetting because one, he was like a very big like mentor in my life
Oh
up to that
God.
point. And then it's also especially heinous because like again, as you said, there's something very different from like somebody going into ninth grade, let alone somebody who's literally in middle school versus
Yeah.
like someone who's like it's all
About to go to college.
wrong.
Yeah.
MPJ is taking a stance that it is all wrong.
Don't do that.
But there's something
Don't
more
do any of
wrong.
that.
Something more wrong about a middle-aged man having a full relationship with a middle schooler as opposed to like anybody in high school.
Oh, for sure.
It's all bad, but it
That's
gets a little less
crazy.
worse as they get older.
As time goes on. Yeah,
Yes.
it wasn't as bad for this one because
Yes.
at the time she was 18.
Okay.
So he had that,
Yes.
but still
Still not
inappropriate, had to
ideal.
resign.
Yeah,
He
no,
had a
inappropriate. Yeah.
no,
Mm-hmm.
he had a wife and child who I think are still he still lives with them and stuff. Well,
Mm-hmm.
get this. Later that year, the police come into the school to confiscate a laptop from another teacher who has been caught having sexual relations with a student, and he's arrested on the spot. He has a wife
Damn.
and a pregnant wife. And you know how they caught him? It was okay, the so he's the perpetrator. The the victim's father also worked for the school, found text messages about this, and then sent the police after his friend because they were buddies. Yeah.
Ew.
No,
It
literally.
really be your friends.
But like
Oh.
always. No, but like twice in that short amount of time, I, I was scared.
Scandal
It was
after scandal
scary
after
because you never
scandal.
knew.
Yeah.
Exactly. We were
Oh.
not no wins.
Oh.
So yeah, I was sort of battling the fact that I might be, I might be prey in this
Yeah.
in this economy. Um, so that was kind of tough.
Mm-hmm.
I got contacts in 10th grade as well.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you
So I
did.
started not wearing my glasses.
So you were
That was
hot.
big. That was big for me. Yeah, pretty much. Um, yeah, I still played lacrosse. I stopped
Mm-hmm.
soccer and I started um thinking about an interest in like acting or whatever, but
Mhm.
I didn't do anything about it yet. But the thought was brewing, you
What
could
was
say.
spurring that, would you say?
I felt like in my friend group, I always was like the funny one or like the one
Mm-hmm.
who I felt like, especially like with my lacrosse team, like I was like their little like stand up like jester person. So I was like, I love to perform, even if
Mm-hmm.
just for 10 people. It is my joy.
There can be 10
So,
people in
and
the
I was like,
room.
I think I could be like, and that's all you need. But yeah, you only need 10 people in the room.
Literally. That's all you need. That's a pretty good
Um,
audience.
yeah,
How
that's
many
pretty
people do you
good.
think listen to this podcast? Joking,
And we
joking,
thank you
joking.
all.
And we thank you
We
all,
thank you.
sincerely.
We thank you all, 1 through 10.
1 through
Um,
10.
but yeah, so that was sort of my, not much happened that year.
Mm-hmm.
It was also that was 2015. So we're about to be in a dangerous time, but nothing's too crazy yet.
Oh, yeah, because we
So
were in
yeah.
different years. Oh, yeah. And this is a piece of the puzzle because I
Yeah.
feel like I've been thinking about
Yeah.
this as Becca and I are the same age because we graduated college at the same time, but very different.
No.
Very, so Becca was a year ahead of me in school. So, like, a year, like, as she's saying it, she was like,
A grade level.
yes. So, I
Yeah.
was like a year ahead of her. And so the current event, I forgot about the current events going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
my sophomore year, one of the definitive things was that I had a very good friend who I ended up developing a crush on. Um, and so, yeah, so like my closest friend, I forget when I realized it. So basically, there was this. So, first of all, the Italy trip. I not so to make reference to Mike's
Mm-hmm.
Mike, one of Becca and I's favorite people. Another person who
Yes.
I was surprised is not on the stand list. I've thought about it a couple times, but
Because I think he'll
um,
be a guest
we are manifesting.
fully.
Um, so I had, much like Mike's Mike, I also had an Italy trip. Um, and
Hmm.
so basically, my school started doing this crazy thing when I was a freshman, which I didn't talk about, but they started APs like freshman year, my freshman year. And since I had done really well academically in middle school, I was invited to like apply. And so I had to write, I remember for my essay, I had to write an essay about like what in my opinion were the two most important historical events like in human history.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I believe
What did you
was
choose?
one was the Fertile Crescent, so Mesopotamia and like the
Okay.
beginning
Fair
of
enough.
sedentary farming. Um
Yeah.
and then the second one was World War II because I felt like because like we had the whole World War II era in my 8th grade year. Like we went to like the big field trip that year was like going to the
Yeah.
Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. So it was top of mind. It's also a very relevant historical event, not to take anything away from World War II as a time period. It has the girls hung up
Sure.
still, even. And so basically, so I started taking AP classes in the like social studies department. So I took my first AP my first year. I only took one. And then my second year, I feel like oh yeah, because then we started this whole. I was also part of my school did AP capstone, and I was in the first cohort of that. And so that's basically
Okay.
two classes. I was also a huge overachiever in high school, and I still am a little bit, but it was
Not
definitely
surprising.
more pronounced in high school because so AP seminar was two classes, AP or no AP capstone I should say. Capstone was two classes, AP seminar and AP capstone. So we took seminar our sophomore year, and it was basically like research and all that kind of stuff. And so it was just getting ready. And then eventually AP capstone my senior year was like my research project. And
Hmm.
so my other AP class I took that year was AP World History, and my teacher for that was gauging interest for a trip to Italy through like
Okay.
education first. And so I was like, I brought it home to my mom, and my mom was like, oh yeah, oh yeah,
You're going.
1,000%. And then she said, you know what, I'm gonna do you one better, I'm coming with.
She came with you?
Yes, my mother and I fully went on a school trip to Italy in my sophomore year of high school for like 11 days.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so
Was
my
she
mom,
like the like a guardian or just
there were a lot of parents on the
did she
trip
help?
actually. A lot of, understandably, like when you're
Oh,
going to Italy, a lot of parents want to go. So like
sure.
there were at least three parents, and like yeah, so like a lot of parents end up going. My mom was one of them. My mom was of
Wow.
course the favorite of like the actual faculty chaperones, because she kept
Of
things
course.
fun. She did end up she did this kid who was, there were these older kids on the trip who weren't like in our world history class, but they just needed people to like fill the trip. And so
Mm-hmm.
my teacher must have gone around and like gotten other people to join it, but I believe they were juniors or seniors at the time. One of them fully tricked my mom into buying a bottle of wine in Italy for him.
Tricked?
Yes. He was
How did
like,
he, how did he
he was
trick
like, oh,
her?
I want it for like a gift for my parents. I'm like, sorry, baby, you are not the type of person who gets a gift for their parents while abroad. Say that.
Oh
And my
my
mom was
God, my
like,
mom would
Mama,
fall for
I
that.
no, I literally, I was like, Mom, you bought him alcohol? And she goes, yeah, he wants it for his parents. I'm like, what?
Oh, what a
Anyway,
fool.
anyway. So yeah, we had the
That is
Italy
so
trip. And then,
funny.
so on the way to the Italy trip, I was sat next to like one of my better friends at school. Like we both did theater together. We like knew each other really well. And so we were sat next to each
Hmm.
other on a 6 hour flight. And so we got to talking, and we basically like came out to each other.
Aw.
Had like a very long conversation about like our sexualities and stuff like that. And obviously going to a school that was, you know, all male Catholic, it was like not a very queer environment. And so
Hmm.
it was an interesting experience for me because it was like, girl, the closet door was open. It was a glass door. Like it was like you could see right through it.
Yeah,
And it was a little less
great
so
scene.
for my friend at the time. And so
Hmm.
it was interesting because I felt like, again, I didn't have to come out, which is also a very interesting thing now that I reflect on it. It's a very interesting experience being like the only like visibly queer person at your school.
Yeah.
It's like a very specific experience I had that I still kind of get like tinges of at different points because like I was just like the only like kid, even not even that I was like I'm gay, but just like a little bit towards
Hmm.
the end of high school I was like a little bit like yeah, but like especially during like the first couple
Yeah.
years I was like not, because I was like, you know, but again
Did a
kind
lot
of
of people like
and
confide in you?
yes. Yes. So like this was
Okay.
one of those instances, but it
So
was
you're
like
like
because
the
we,
secret master.
yes, because like we knew each other, and so it was like okay, yeah. And so
Hmm.
I was like the first person this close friend of mine who I'm sitting next to on the plane to Italy ever came out to. And so we really
Hmm.
bonded over the course of that trip because like we roomed together in our first like rooming assignment. We like basically spent the whole trip together. And so by the time we got home, I was crushing really hard.
Yeah.
And so then, but back to like being the only queer person at school, like there were many experiences. One, I had this friend who actually, I don't think I'm going to say that one because I know for a fact they've listened to the podcast.
Okay.
I
Hee hee.
I'm going to tell my friend Becca after the podcast, but one thing that did happen in, it was after I graduated high school, I'm pretty sure. But there was somebody I was friends with. So my first year of high school, I took a TV production class because my school had like a morning show that they actually like produced, and there was like a TV studio in my
Yeah.
school. And so
Mm-hmm.
One of the kids I took it with, he did not end up like finishing his high school at the school I was at. And so I never really gotten the whole story, but like we worked together on a lot of projects and stuff. Like I knew him pretty well, but like we didn't really talk outside of class. Becca and I have talked about the idea of a class friend. It was very
Mm-hmm.
much that kind of thing.
Love
He,
it.
I believe my first year of college, he reached out to me on Facebook and sent me this long message about like, he was like, it's something to the effect of like, hey Quinn, I found you on here and I just wanted to reach out to you because I found you really like inspiring in high school and like all this stuff. And I don't know what the full message says to this day because I saw it and it's like, you know, when you see something and you're like, okay, I don't have the bandwidth to like respond to that right now. And you're like, I just need to take a
Yeah.
sec. And so
And it just sat.
yes, I very much, it just sat and I truly can't tell you for how long. So maybe it's like an am I the asshole moment. But at some point, he like unsent the message and I believe may have blocked
Oh,
me. And
oh,
so,
oh, wow.
yeah. And I like, it was just random stuff like that throughout high school where like I was the person people would come to. And it was like, it wasn't that fun because like
Yeah.
now I talked to my one friend who goes to like Boston College, which is a Catholic university, and obviously a lot of people who went to Catholic school. Other Catholic schools had whole like DL scenes, like, you know, like I could have been capitalizing in a way I was not in high school, but you
Yeah.
know,
Unfortunately,
unfortunately. But the Italy trip was a big part
live and
of
learn.
my sophomore year of school, probably the seminal. And then I started to have a crush on my best friend, which would kind of start to complicate things as I moved through the rest of my high school
Mm-hmm.
experience. But that was kind of
Yeah.
that was the big event of that year, I would say.
Did that happen in the summer,
No,
that trip?
it happened over spring break, so like April.
Oh, okay. Gotcha, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
fun. And now an MPJ special announcement.
Hello, disciples. It is your lovely host, Quinn, and today I'm coming to you from the Edit Bay. And before you ask, no, Becca and I are not corporate shills quite yet who are going to be doing ad reads on the pod. Stay tuned for all that. But on a more serious note, as you all know, Becca and I can be a bit ambitious. And so, to pull the curtain back a little bit, for this high school episode, we recorded about 3 hours worth of footage for this one episode, but we obviously do not want to upload a 3-hour episode for y'all. I mean, not too crazy considering our past record, but you know, 3 hours is a button pushed for us. So, instead, what we have decided to do is make a super sexy part 2 to this podcast. Yes, part 2. So, this was part 1. We described our freshman year and our sophomore year of high school, as well as a little preamble. And then next week, we're going to get into the real tea of our junior year and our senior years. And yeah, so this is actually our first 2-parter. It's an MPJ first. You all, as the audience, are a part of history, and Becca and I are the ones making history, as I'm sure no one here is surprised. But yes, so be sure to tune in next week if you want to hear the rest of this. But for right now, Becca and I will be doing our Manic Pixie moments and our jump scares of the week. And we might even have a comment corner. Okay, bye. Oh my God. I've left this time alone with you guys. It's like crazy. Guys, I'm scared.
And we're back.
Oh my goodness. So now the time has come for our weekly segments.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Becca and I love to give a little shout out to our listeners here of the pod. And we had yet another listener write in. And so we would like to recognize that person from one, Christine Murphy. It is a forward message that the subject line says Quinn's early love for Lady Gaga. So perhaps a reference to, which I didn't actually talk about on the pod proper, but I did talk about one of our exclusives when Becca and I took a visit to Harry's house. So if you haven't seen that, baby, go to our YouTube. What are you doing? see what Becca and I think, see what we, are talking about.
Check in.
So this woman, Christine, sent us an email.
This rando.
It has a link to a Facebook page to it. And it says, my friend Mike did show her this video sent from my iPhone. And so live on the pod, we're going to open the, and the link is broken, unfortunately. So Christine,
okay,
thank you so much for writing in. And you know what?
That was really helpful.
Maybe we can try again. But we will not be able to see evidence of my early love of Lady Gaga today.
Yeah.
So without further ado, that was our comment corner for this week.
Thanks for the comment.
Thank you. If you want to be featured on an episode of Manic Pixie Jump Scare, it's so easy. You just have to email manicpixiejumpscare@gmail.com, not Manic Pixie Jump Start. That was Christine's initial mistake because her forward message was sent to an email address, manicpixiejumpstart@gmail.com, which is not our email.
So, no.
That might be someone's email. I don't know. I don't know if people are using those combination of words together, but people could also say the same thing about our podcast.
Could be.
So yeah, if you want to be featured,
we'll get some random emails.
If you want to be featured in a future comment corner, please write in.
Please.
Okay.
Please.
But we have now come to our other segments that we'd like to do. So we first have our jump scare of the week. So it is something that Becca and I have experienced in the past week that instilled a deep sense of fear in us. Made us go, oh! And so, Becca, what was that moment for you this week?
This was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
So something that often scares me a lot is finances.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
And recently, and I told you this before, but recently I learned what a credit card is and what it truly does and how maybe I might need one in the future.
Yeah.
And that scared me so bad because that's a lot of power in a small piece of plastic.
Yeah.
And I'm just terrified.
Yeah. My very good friend just got her first credit card.
That's pretty much it. I don't think anything can solve it or fix it. What's scaring you this week?
What is scaring me this week? There's so much I could talk about. How much of it do I actually want to talk about is the question. One really funny thing that did happen, which is kind of a jump scare, is so me and my two friends went out to dinner on Friday night. We went to a local restaurant here in the neighborhood of Oakland that I will not name on the pod because I do enjoy this restaurant.
Okay.
But there was a little surprise waiting for me. So me and my friends, we sit down. It's Friday night. We want to get a little loosey-goosey. We had some plans for the night. And so we decided to each of us order an individual pitcher of margaritas.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a beautiful seasonal margarita. It's raspberry infused. It was very nice. It was like pink. It tasted more like pink lemonade. It was like pink lemonade, but like you could definitely taste, the margarita of it all, the tequila, all that kind of stuff. And so mine is like a little sweet. And so I'm like, maybe it just needs a little stir. And so I don't have a spoon, but I do have a knife in my little, silverware kit. And so I take my knife, I swirl it around, and there were some limes floating in the margarita, as is pretty characteristic of a margarita. I pull my knife out, and what is on the knife but a little produce sticker from the lime that had not been taken off before it had been sliced up and put into my drink.
Drink. So did you sue?
I did not. I didn't even make a stink about it. I was like, I did take a picture. So perhaps we will post that on the Instagram this week. And yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it was definitely an experience that I did have. And so, yeah, that was my jump scare
That's
for the week.
terrible. I think you should take legal action.
There were scarier things that happened to me this week, but not sure if I'm in the place to talk about all of them right now. But with that being said,
I get that. Get that.
Becca, we now come to the manic pixie moment of the week, where is a time where we kind of felt like the main character. We felt high on our own supply, if you will. And so, Becca, what was your manic pixie moment this week?
Yeah. So mine actually comes from today. It was a big moment. So today's the first day of cancer season, as we talked about. And something that happened is I found out that I don't have cancer. Rock on. Because I had an ultrasound. And yeah.
Okay, yay.
Yeah.
Wait.
It wasn't like it wasn't okay.
Did they think you had it?
It wasn't like a big concern. No,
was there like a
not
scare?
like I just have a cyst.
Okay.
No, I just have a cyst. But it was just like a double check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I was like, how fitting. Sorry to throw you for a loop.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. We're happy Becca does not have cancer.
So it's awesome.
Becca is representing for all the cancers who don't have cancer.
Yes.
I have not had any miraculous health news like that this week. But my manic pixie moment is, as I talked about, I did see a 3-hour play recently. And on the way to the play, actually, I took public transportation because I was like, you know what? I'm not going to drive down there because so part of the reason I went to the play is because it's part of the artist date, which I'm going to talk about the artist way again, guys. But the artist date is a part of the artist way. So each week you have to take yourself on an artist date that's supposed to help you unleash your creativity and stuff like that. And so basically the artist date, I took myself to the play as my artist date. And so to and from, I was like, let me just take the bus. It's economical, it's better for the environment. And so what did I do on the bus? But read a book.
So hot.
It wasn't independently riding the bus. It wasn't independently reading a book, because those are all things I've done. It's reading a book while riding the bus. I mean, come on now. It's truly such a novel experience, because it's something if I had driven myself, I can't read. Maybe my eyes got to be on the road. My hands have to be on the wheel. Famously. My hands have to be on the wheel. And I could have listened to music on the bus. Yeah, but I could also listen to music in my car. Could have listened to an audiobook on the bus, but I could have also listened to an audiobook in my car. So it was a truly unique experience of me being on the bus and being like, let me just read.
All the elements combined.
Literally, yeah.
Do you follow the Instagram account Hot Dudes Reading?
No, I should though.
You should. They're almost always on the bus or the subway.
Oh my God, it's so nice. It's so nice.
It's so awesome.
If we're going to talk about the London trip, which I didn't talk about, I realized, but I remember I was reading the book that Love, Simon, the movie, is based off of. And I while we would be riding the tubes, everybody else would be yelling and stuff and talking, but I would just read my book the whole time. No,
sometimes you have to.
No, and in the theater too, I was at the theater early, and so I brought my book out. I was reading some pages, literally getting ready to start the show. And I was it was a manic pixie moment. I was I look so mysterious to everybody on the bus right now.
So cool.
Everybody's oh my God, they're reading.
Who's that reading?
What? On the bus? What?
It's like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. You're like, yeah.
No, truly, it's like, yeah. Like people were like,
anything.
yeah. And so that was my Manic Pixie moment of the week.
I love it.
I also got to do it again yesterday, but it was nice because the bus ride was also like, 20 minutes. And so like, it was a good chunk of time. And then my one yesterday was only like 10 minutes. And so it's like, can't really get into stuff.
Can't get much done.
And so,
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, Becca, we've done it again.
For a fifth time.
And doesn't it feel so good?
Yes.
So, Becca, where can people keep up with you if they are so inclined after they listen to this podcast?
I am at Becca Hobart on Instagram, and I am also at Where Y'all Going During World War III on TikTok. Mm-hmm. Quinn, where can the people keep up with you individually?
I'm at Quinn P. Murphy on Instagram and TikTok. Mm-hmm. And then I'm at Quinny P123 on Twitter. And you can also find me reading on your form of local transit wherever you live.
That's it. And of course, please email manicpixiejumpscare@gmail.com for any questions, comments, or concerns. We will not be actually taking into account any concerns, but we will take your positive comments.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
I mean, concerns, but like approach it with a hermeneutic of positivity and of reverence for this show, because that's how you should be treating the show. Yeah, we demand it. Of course. And if you do want to follow the show, you can look up Manic Pixie Jump Scare on Instagram and also Manic Pixie Jump Scare on TikTok. We would love if you guys followed us there, kept up with our little highlights throughout the week. Maybe even throw a comment on them.
Yeah.
You can engage with Becca and I personally if you do that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The lucky chance.
No promise. And we also have a YouTube channel. We have the Manic Pixie Jump Scare YouTube channel where we post full video episodes of all of our episodes, except, of course, for the dogs who can't bark, because baby, she got a little problematic with the export process, and
crazy.
We respect her, but it's tough.
Do we?
It's tough. We have to say
the company we worked through will be the first thing on the we do not stand list. I'll tell you that much.
People really want an anti-stand list.
And I'm ready for it.
And by people, I mean the one person who texted me today and was like, I think there needs to be a list of things you hate.
Yeah, I think so too.
Would really run in the face of us being like, we want to like things.
Maybe it'll be better because like once we get out all our hate, like we'll just be full.
Yeah, there'll just be more room for love, and it'll just be like, guys, these are the things we hate. We're Quinn.
We're Quinn,
and we're Becca. And thank you.
And thank you for listening. I think that worked.
Oh my god. Manic Pixie Jump Scare is hosted by Quinn Murphy
and Becca Hobart. Executive produced by Quinn Murphy and Becca Hobart.
Sound and video editing by Quinn Murphy.
Social media management and highlights by Becca Hobart.
And our theme song was written by Quinn Murphy, Becca Hobart, and Nandita Mahesh.